26,000 feet, minus 40 degrees, fuel ticking down toward the last 30 minutes. The bombers are strung out below, heavy and slow, when 14 fighters drop out of the sun at once. The rule is clear. Stay with the bombers, never leave them alone, never pursue. The clock says there is no time to debate it. First Lieutenant James Howell Howard pushes the throttle forward anyway and breaks the rule while the formation is already under fire. The sky over central Germany is already crowded with contrails and burning fuel. Machine gun fire flashes between wings. The American bombers are seconds from being torn open. If Howard turns back now, the doctrine is satisfied and the mission fails. If he goes forward, he will be alone. He goes forward. The German fighters are closing fast, altitude advantage intact, their noses already angling toward the lead B-17s. They expect resistance from a screen of escorts. They find only one silver P-51 accelerating straight at them. At this distance and speed, there is no room to hesitate. Howard commits before anyone else does. The first pass happens so quickly it almost doesn't register. One attacker breaks formation, then another. Then the rest hesitate just long enough for the geometry of the fight to change. This is how the moment begins. By January 1944, the air war over Germany has reached a critical edge. The 8th Air Force is pushing deeper than ever before. Targets are no longer coastal ports or rail yards near the border. They are industrial cities at the center of the Reich. Aircraft factories, engine plants, places like Oschersleben. Oschersleben matters. It produces aircraft components at a rate the German Air Force cannot afford to lose. That is why, on 11 January 1944, hundreds of American bombers turn east and stay on course despite the weather and the flak forecasts. They know the Luftwaffe will come. The Luftwaffe knows this target cannot be left undefended. Standard tactics are beginning to fail on both sides. The Germans are running out of experienced pilots but compensating with massed, aggressive interceptions. The Americans are losing bombers faster than they can replace trained crews. Escort fighters have the range now, but not the numbers to be everywhere at once. Doctrine says the fighters must stay tight to the bombers. Doctrine says pursuit invites disaster. Doctrine is about to meet reality. Howard is flying a P-51B Mustang, a long-range escort fighter with speed, altitude performance, and a fuel tank behind the cockpit that makes it dangerous in a turning fight until it is burned down. He has already flown combat missions before this day. He has seen formations shredded when escorts were too cautious. He has also seen fighters lost when pilots chased kills and forgot the bombers. He is not reckless. His record shows discipline. What he has is an ability to read a fight before it fully forms. Howard grew up in Washington State. He learned to fly early. He trained as a pursuit pilot at a time when air combat was still being rewritten by experience. He understands angles, closure rates, and the psychology of opposing pilots. He knows that German interceptors rely on coordinated timing. He also knows that coordination breaks under pressure. As the escort formation approaches Oschersleben, Howard's squadron is already stretched thin. Radio traffic is heavy. Reports of enemy fighters are constant and overlapping. Somewhere above and behind, another escort group is engaged and cannot assist. Below, the bombers are beginning their bomb run. Then the German attack develops all at once. A group of fighters, roughly 14 in the first wave, dives from above and behind the bombers, splitting into elements designed to force escorts to react late. It is a classic tactic. If the escorts turn to meet them, another group will come from a different angle. If the escorts stay close, the bombers absorb the damage. Howard sees the first wave commit. He counts them automatically. He measures the angles. He knows that if they reach firing range in formation, the bombers will take losses that cannot be undone. The radio crackles with warnings and instructions. Stay with the bombers. Do not pursue. Do not get separated. Howard does not pursue. He attacks. He shoves the nose down and goes straight at the center of the incoming fighters. This is not an attempt to score a kill. It is an attempt to collapse a geometry. Head-on passes are dangerous and discouraged. They give both pilots only seconds to fire and leave no margin for error. They also force a decision immediately. The German pilots are not expecting a single fighter to charge directly into them. They expect defensive turns, a screen, a gradual engagement. Instead, they are forced to react individually. Some break left, some pull up, one hesitates. Howard fires a short burst at the moment of maximum closure and flashes through the formation. There is no time to watch the result. He is already pulling up and around, converting speed into altitude, positioning for another pass. What should not work is working. By attacking alone, Howard presents a threat that feels larger than it is. The German pilots cannot see the rest of the sky behind him. They cannot be sure more Mustangs are not seconds away. The uncertainty disrupts their timing. Their attack dissolves into a series of individual reactions. Howard comes back through again. This time he picks a target that has drifted low and slow, out of alignment with the others. Another short burst. Another break in the enemy formation. The bombers below fly on, untouched for the moment. The fight does not end. It spreads. More German fighters arrive. FW-190s and BF-109s slide into the fight from different altitudes. Howard is now well beyond the protective radius of the bomber formation. He is alone, by doctrine abandoned, by necessity committed. Fuel drops below the halfway mark. Ammunition is finite. Each pass must matter. He keeps the fight vertical. He avoids turning contests. He attacks from angles that force the enemy to defend instead of aim. He never stays long enough to be bracketed by multiple guns. When he cannot attack, he positions himself where he can be seen. Presence matters. Every time the German pilots try to reform for another coordinated strike on the bombers, Howard is there, crossing their intended line of attack. He does not chase them away from the bombers. He inserts himself into the space they need to organize. The Luftwaffe pilots are experienced enough to recognize danger, but not enough to ignore it. They have been told American escorts are now aggressive and capable. They cannot risk being drawn into a trap at this altitude and range. One fighter is not supposed to be a trap. Today, it feels like one. Howard shoots down 3 aircraft by his own accounting. Others are damaged or forced away. The exact number matters less than the effect. Attack after attack breaks apart before it can be completed. The bombers reach the target. Bombs fall on Aschersleben. Flak bursts rise to meet them. Factories burn. Howard's fuel warning comes on. His ammunition is nearly gone. He is still above enemy territory with hostile fighters around him. There is no sense of victory. There is only the next decision. He turns back toward the bombers and falls into escort position as if nothing unusual has happened. The formation regroups. Other escorts finally arrive to reinforce the withdrawal. The Germans disengage. The flight home is quiet. Back on the ground, the reports do not sound dramatic. One pilot engaged superior numbers. Bombers protected. Losses minimal for the scale of the mission. Howard himself does not embellish. He describes what he did and why he did it. Others begin to fill in the gaps. Bomber crews report seeing a single Mustang cutting through attacking fighters again and again. Escort pilots report radio calls that never came because Howard was too busy flying to explain himself. Intelligence officers reconstruct the engagement and realize how close the mission came to failure. James Howell Howard receives the Medal of Honor for his actions on 11 January 1944. It is awarded not for recklessness, but for judgment under fire. The legacy of that day is not a new maneuver written into a manual. It is a reinforcement of an idea already forming in the air war over Europe. Escort fighters are not just shields. They are active agents that shape the enemy's behavior. Sometimes, staying with the bombers means going away from them. As the war continues, American fighter doctrine becomes more flexible. Pilots are trusted to read the fight and act decisively. The Luftwaffe, facing increasing pressure and loss of initiative, finds it harder to mount coordinated attacks. None of this is obvious in the moment at 26,000 feet with fuel running out. Howard does not describe fear. He describes calculations, angles, timing, the need to act before the enemy does. The lesson that remains is quiet and uncomfortable. Rules exist because they work most of the time. Combat reveals the moments when they do not. In those moments, presence, judgment, and the willingness to act alone can hold a line that numbers cannot. On 11 January 1944 over Oschersleben, one pilot occupied a piece of sky so completely that 14 attackers could not pass through it. That space, held for minutes at a time, was enough. Sometimes the difference is not force. It is the decision to be exactly where the enemy expects weakness and to stay there.